Thank you so much once again. We now proceed to our next session, which is a case study panel discussion on secret of success, that's cost-effective IT strategies. I would like to introduce you all to our esteemed panelists, starting with Mr. Pankaj Pandit, CIO from Oberoi Realty, Mr. Atul Srivastava, CIO from Trident Global Corp Limited and Group Companies, Mr. Pawan Satyawali, Group CIO from Tata Consumer Products, Mr. Kamal Shah, CIO from Tata Technologies, Mr. Kiran Giri, Manager Solutions Engineering from NetApp, Mr. Rajesh from Vice President and Head of Product Engineering from Signet.One, Mr. Tushar Vagal, CIO from Larsen and Toubro Realty, Mr. Rajiv Bhatia, CIO from CMS Infosystems, and this esteemed panel discussion will be moderated by Mr. Ramanarayana, Parhi, CIO from Alchem Laboratories Limited. I'll request all the panelists and a moderator to please join us on stage. And can we have a huge round of applause to welcome them on stage?
Big panel, actually. Sometimes quite taxing and boring as well. And we are probably the last panel before the lunch break, right? Is there any other panel after this? No, so that means it's even more difficult. Right, for all of you to still pay attention, but we'll try to make it as effective and short as possible. Yeah, I think you can all use. Yeah. So I think Atul, you had presented how the IT budgets, get approved when things are not working, but when it is all good, you get pressure to reduce the budgets and all that, right? And we all hate that period during this February to March when we are doing the budgeting, and obviously the question is always how much you can reduce. IT is expected to deliver more, but at the same time reduce cost, right? Its own cost. So I would like to maybe start with Mr. Tushar, right? And followed by Mr. Kamal. So how do we balance this? Because IT has to innovate, has to deliver better services quicker. At the same time, they are also under the cost pressure and they need to be more efficient with the cost. So how do you balance it?
So when we say innovate, so what is the outcome of innovation? Okay, either bigger profits or double the turnover. Okay, so that's the outcome of our innovation. So with this in mind, okay, any budget which is there should be at least 30% for innovation. Okay, 50% for your maintenance, 20% for your upgrades. Okay, that's a common thing. If you don't plan that way, you're not going to double your turnover. You're not going to get your more budgets. Okay, simple as that.
Kamal?
So this is a really good question, and I think the slide that got presented kind of depicted the state of a CIO, if you will, for many years, if not just now. And I have two responses, if you will. Number one, I think any budget activity, irrespective of the function that you represent, needs to be closely articulated with what the business really wants. So that business IT alignment needs to be reflected through the numbers that get presented through Excel sheet. And once you start doing that, I think there is much more acceptance to what you're proposing versus what you're not. That to me is number one. And number two, I guess, it's about telling a story. Every good director, if you will, has a hero and a villain. Of course, the CIO knows who the villain is in the room. It's the guy who has the checkbook with him or her. And you are the one who is the one supposed to present the story. And the way I would look at it is that you take a hero, you make the hero work hard, you plant a seed, you make a tree, and then what you do is you put the hero on the tree, right? And when you put the hero on the tree, everyone is going to look around and say, oh, no, that's not good enough, right? I mean, that's not a big deal. But the moment you take a matchstick and light the tree, now you get everyone's attention. And the prodigal son has to return at that point to save the hero. And that to me is the point where I think my dear friend mentioned when things go south, there is more money to be put to play. And you got to tell a story which is very convincing, and if you can do that, I think budget is just one more activity in the many things that a CIO has to do. But that's been my mantra, that's been my success story or my failure points as well. And if you can do that, I think you will sail through.
Fantastic. I think you make two very interesting points. One is the business alignment and the business ROI alignment, right? So if the IT cost is not seen in isolation, right, but it is actually supposed to deliver a business ROI, then maybe those questions will not come in terms of your cost. And of course, storytelling goes without saying everywhere, right? I mean, if you can sell a good story, everything works, right? So I think from the morning itself, we have been talking a lot about, of course, the cloud computing and AI, right? Both these technologies, I mean, cloud, of course, has been there for quite some time now, and a lot of companies have tried to use it to have more cost effectiveness in their work and make more of the capex convert into opex and all that. But I would like to maybe ask Pawan, what's your view on using cloud as a way to reduce cost for IT?
At Tata Consumer, we started our cloud journey somewhere around 2017, and by 2018 end, we were completely on cloud. Traditionally, what we thought was the cost reduction would be there compared to what we are going to spend one time in the data centers. The model will change, the speed will be there from go-to-market perspective. But the other two things which we have over a period of time understood was the managed services cost on the cloud is far lesser. I remember when I used to operate a data center, we used to have a network team of roughly around 4 or 5 people, a Wintel team, so and so forth. Today, my entire cloud, which is pretty sizable, is managed by just 2 people. They do it end to end. So my managed services cost came down, but the biggest thing is the innovation. I don't think the kind of services which are available now and the way you can adopt them for the business would be available in a legacy data centers way. Today, if I want to put a new transport management system or want to put a new planning system and want to integrate it with my end-to-end systems, right? The lead time is anything between 6 to 7 months. In a legacy way, probably you'll take 3 months, 5 months to just acquire the hardware. So I think the innovation, speed of innovation should be the first criteria you should be looking at when you want to invest in cloud. The traditional savings would always be there.
Fantastic. Rajesh, you would like to add something from the software field?
Yeah. So, see, in today's business landscape, which is, quite changing in very fast pace, it becomes difficult to maintain your captive hardware because you need to keep up to date with the latest licenses, latest firmwares, latest software updates, right? On top of that, also, you need to maintain the right skill. And the situation currently in the industry, right? Managing a right skill over a long period of time is very much difficult. That's where the cloud computing emerging as a savior for us, where at the initial you do not require any investment at the upfront because you can choose pay-as-you-go model. And on top of that, it always allows you the flexibility where you can straight away innovate anything against the hardware available into the cloud, because in data center it becomes difficult where you want to, let's say, explore the big data mechanism or a big data practical or a POC, right? You require a larger set of hardware, which is not ready-made available into the data center. It generally takes 3 to 4 months a cycle to acquire new hardware. So that's where, but also the cloud computing come with its own challenges and risks. You have to create a security mechanism in place. You have to keep vigilant focus on top of that. You have to identify the cost-saving patterns in terms of users which is getting used in the cloud. So again, for businesses, it differs case to cases. They need to assess their strategic move. They need to assess what needs to be moved into cloud, what needs to be kept into the data center. So some organization may choose, hybrid approach for larger set of application which is critical in nature, where high volume traffic surge is getting there. They can move into the cloud, but for rest of the volume, they can also keep it to the data center.
So basically understanding the use case and the purpose for which you are kind of deploying the application kind of determines that, and you need to kind of constantly monitor also, right?
Correct.
Because sometimes cloud can be one-way street, right? So you have gone into that, now there is no coming back, you keep on adding data and applications and compute cost increases, and suddenly 1 month you receive a big invoice from AWS or Azure, right? So just I think using the same framework, right? I mean, artificial intelligence, again, we have been talking about it. I use Copilot myself. License is not cheap. Of course, even for, there was this gentleman from Microsoft, right? Yes, sir, 𝗘𝗱𝗁𝗏. Even for your Office 365, you need E3 licenses, which will cost quite a bit, and then top of that, Copilot will cost you about 25,000 rupees per annum and all that. So maybe it will come down over a period of time, but how do you see, I mean, artificial intelligence, of course, we are starting to see the benefit of it, but again, from a cost effectiveness standpoint, right? I mean, have you reached that level where we can clearly say that, okay, if I, like cloud we said, right? Most of the time we are able to get some savings, but with artificial intelligence, is that particular point is already reached, or do we think we still have to kind of work towards it, right? So that we can deploy AI and still reduce cost, not add up.
Yes. So, well, what I can say is Gen AI or automation or AI, right? These technologies has transformative changes or impact on the IT cost, because I'll give the two examples or two real life practical examples we have implemented into the Signet. So we are into the product businesses as well as services. We cater India, GCC, Europe, entire market. An entire 20% of e-invoicing traffic is going through our product. And you can imagine the volume and the customers which are coming to our product, right? We need a huge support into the backend. That was incurring a huge cost. So we come up with the generative AI chatbot help desk for our customers, where they can straight away go into our system, ask the questions on whatever the need, either it is a issue or a data or whatever they need out of the portal. They can straight away get that thing. And it ultimately helps us to save the cost at the back end, which is getting incurred due to the support member. The other use case is in terms of cloud computing. Earlier we used to do a manual hardware configuration or an infrastructure provisioning. That is now, it's totally obsolete. You can entirely automate the entire provisioning using the Terraform, something like that, right? So you can write a Terraform script, you can use the Ansible to automate entire infrastructure on just a click of time. It will save your time. It will help us to, go into market very faster. So these things are bringing transformative change, as well as it is saving the cost also.
Okay. So I think definitely there are use cases now, I think in services at least, right, where the service desk is definitely getting a lot of benefit by Gen AI and all that, where you get huge efficiencies. Those cases are definitely being seen. So from a IT infrastructure, I think we kind of touched that. Now, in terms of measuring the KPIs, right, how do you measure this? Because sometimes the cost can be in different elements. It's not very easy to also see. I mean, and also sometimes what you budgeted, right, you ended up spending more because something did not work, or you had to bring some other integration solutions and all that. So do you see in your organizations that are clear KPIs that you are able to define, for tracking cost, and are you able to measure them and kind of stay within those, limits? How do you see that? I mean, the question for anybody who'd like to talk about it, but maybe Pankaj, Kiran, anybody would like to?
So consider case of $1 billion company, okay? At least 10% is the cost of manpower and the cost of selling, okay? So 800 crores is the cost. Typically in the Indian companies, we get around 1% of that as a budget. Now, try to understand that even if you save 1% of the turnover, okay, you have achieved your target. There is an unnecessary hue and cry about budgets, reduction, all such things. I say make every employee a commando, okay? Companies internationally are doing $1 billion turnover with 40 to 50 people. Their IT spend is 20 lakh rupees per person, okay? Here in India, for a 8,000 crore company, we have a 2,000 people manpower. And then we complain that there are not enough people available. There is not skilled people available. So it's an anti-thing. We have to make every person available as a commando. Spend the best. Give them the equipment. Don't cry, okay? Convince the management of the ROI. See, because if 400 crores are being spent on the manpower, even a 5% saving is enough for you. Procurements, for a $1 billion company, the procurement is around 3,000 to 4,000 crore. You save 2% there. You get 60 crore benefit. I think that all the CIOs are in the wrong direction. You have to stop going in the red ocean. Please come in the blue ocean. It is, I think, unnecessary discussion happening on the front. We have to train all the CIOs to be in the blue ocean rather than be on the red ocean.
So here what I would like to suggest, I mean, just carrying on from what he's saying, Tushar is saying, and I'll call it IT spend rather, not cost. There's a slight difference. So first thing one can do is have a ratio. What is the ratio of IT spend vis-a-vis the top line of the organization? So depending on the sector, this ratio varies, but today you have those standards available. You can benchmark your IT cost or IT spend rather against your top line. So if you are a BFSI, that ratio will be higher, say maybe 3 to 4% of the top line. If you are a real estate, it will be much lower, less than 1%. But you can always benchmark your IT spend at a basic level. So you have a boundary, and you will know whether you are too far off or you are good. Then you can also use benchmarks like per employee cost of IT. That is another one you can use. Then you can break up your IT cost using 80-20 ratio. So you can have that breakup. Usually 20% of your IT initiatives or IT buckets will cost 80% of your expenditure. So you can look at those 20% and focus on those. Then you can again break those down and work. If you are spending a lot on cloud, then can that be optimized? Also, you can look at CapEx, OpEx. Now, in the era before cloud, CapEx was a direct indication of what new initiatives you are taking in IT. And that's a measure of CIO's effectiveness also. So what is the ratio of your OpEx to CapEx? Now, in cloud era, we can just tweak it slightly. We can say that the spend on doing new things vis-a-vis spend on keeping the lights on. That ratio we can track. So, that way you know how effective you are. If there is too much spend on just keeping the lights on, then CIO is not effective, is how I will see it. So, new initiative. Then what is your fixed cost and what is the variable cost? This is another element of cost now. Because that also talks about how agile how agile is the IT function per se. So before cloud, as we know, a lot of investments used to happen in servers and all. That was a fixed kind of, that was a sunk cost. But now that agility has increased. So this measure can be used for your own organization to check how agile is your IT. So these are more or less few pointers in measurements, those you can do against the cost.
Atul, you want to add something?
Just one thing to add in that. We talked about the CapEx and OpEx. Definitely in the area of the cloud computing and other thing, the OpEx is the major concern for each and every CIO. And in that also, the three major things like the manage, the run, and the monitor, these things where the main cost occurs. And definitely the AI or the machine learning based systems can help us a lot in reducing the cost, taking the right time decisions based upon the data. At the same time, when we have to run that particular car, we have already bought a very expensive car, but when we have to run, when we have to manage, when we have to maintain that, so that is most important. So that AI or the ML-based algorithms can help us in that to manage and maintain.
Can I add? Yeah. So I think taking cue from what you said around 80-20, right? So I can give a little bit view in terms of visibility. Do we have the visibility of, whether we have the right data at the right place? We have so many options today, right? We have, infra, which is there on-prem and cloud, so on and so forth. But do we have the right data at the right place? Which means that is it cost optimized? So going back to the same rule, an organization uses only 20% of the data. Rest of the 80% is sleeping, lying there somewhere in a very, very expensive, infra. And overall, that is the cost which we need to look at, and that is your saving. If we are able to identify that 80%, and there are age-old techniques like the life cycle management of the data, right? And I think today we have these beautiful dashboards and applications which really gives you the visibility inside data as to where are the data, whether they are in the right place or not. And I saw this beautiful dashboard called a sustainability dashboard. And it's a buzzword, but that particular tools are the ones which will be able to give you insight on where can you save cost in terms of infra, is what I see.
I think fantastic. Rajiv, right? Yeah.
So just adding on to that, I think that's a very valid point on you can employ data analytics, right? And you can get patterns on how you're using that data. So the 80-20 rule is very, very valid. We actually use only 20% of data. If I take an example, as our organization, we store a lot of images in cloud, okay? And those images are never used. And in terms of images, it consumes a huge number of data. So if we can identify pattern, if we can work with our business stakeholders and identify patterns that when that data is going to be used, or in the past, let's say last 2 years, when the query has come to access those data, then we can, based on those patterns, we can take a conscious call that that entire data has to be stored in the humongous costly drives, or it can be stored in the low cost drives. So you can definitely save cost on that.
So I think just to build on that, right? So one of the areas we would like to explore is, have you come across in your careers where, let's say, the management or leadership team kind of imposed certain cost restrictions, and maybe because of business reasons, there is a cyclic issue or whatever, and you took certain decisions, right? And that did not work out in the long run, right? Sometimes it happens, right? You take some short-term decisions and then you realize that, oh, over the long run, I'm actually losing money. Anybody wants to share any examples? Have they faced this kind of challenges?
See, these challenges are common. Okay, everyone would have faced those challenges. But what we need to do is to prevent these challenges. I think there should be a mechanism, or there should be a process to review your cloud costs, or to review your infra costs. As you rightly mentioned, it should not be a one-way street where we are cloud is scalable, right?
Yeah.
I mean, any new requirement comes, we put more infra, it's scalable, so we at the end of the day we'll get a huge bill. So you should have a monitoring mechanism, a review mechanism at the end of each month, or a defined frequency where you are reviewing your cloud usage and then optimizing your cloud usage. You should be sitting with your business stakeholders and identifying that what storage is used for what. You should be also optimizing your software also. It's not only about infra.
Yeah.
Okay. When your software is using, let's say, I mean, if your software is running queries, okay, what kind of queries it is running? In the end, it's based on the compute power that you're using in the cloud. So everything you need to review. Okay, and then it all boils down to the earlier question about KPIs also. It should be a culture within the IT team itself also. When you're defining the KPIs, there should be, when they are setting up these systems, there should be a culture, there should be cost conscious that how they are setting up these systems. So it entirely boils down to that. However, when we are reducing these costs, so suppose there is a cost crunch and we have to reduce the cost, you cannot take a knee-jerk decision, okay? Because a knee-jerk decision will always result into some kind of an impact later on.
Yeah.
Okay, you have to be very conscious of the cost reduction and what is the impact it is having on the performance of the system. Because in the end, business needs that performance. The use case which is running, that needs to happen. So you need to identify the areas very critically where you can reduce the cost, and it should not impact the performance of the systems also.
I have one take on this. There is a cost of doing IT, and there is cost of not doing IT. Now, and I'll give you an example, since you asked an example. A typical example here is how much management wants to spend on IT security. I think everybody of us have faced this, because security is like insurance, and it's like a black hole. No matter how much money you sink in it, you will still need some more. But here, that's a call, because if, for example, one ransomware attack on the business is sufficient to change the perspective. Yeah. And there are more than enough examples of that. But this is actually quite easily preempted. So cost of doing IT, good IT, is actually investment. It is not, should not be treated as a cost per se. So if that is the way we look at it, but the cost of not doing IT can be humongous. And I hope nobody learns it the hard way.
So almost like saying cost of non-compliance is usually 3 times that of the cost of
absolutely,
compliance.
bang on, yeah, yeah.
So I have a take on this. So basically, all the big software providers like SAP, the Salesforce, and all these big ones, so typically they are proving to be very, very expensive now. Okay. Yeah. So we all end up making something outside them, a small app or something, which can be cost effective. They also have realized this. They have bought companies which does that. Like, for example, Salesforce has bought Heroku. Heroku is where you are charged on concurrent user or CPU base. Otherwise, the Salesforce license will cost around 2,000 rupees per user. Just imagine you have got 1 lakh customers, so it's just not possible. So that's one part where initially we thought, okay, we have Salesforce, now we have everything in the world, but that doesn't happen that way.
Yeah.
So that's a sweet dream which is broken. So you have to be careful. Now the next thing which they are doing is, all the vendors are saying they're charging you per record or per processing charge. And that's a killer. So what Kiran explained about the data and all that is nowhere valid now. Because they're not just starting per record. Just imagine Salesforce has 1 crore records, SAP has 2 crore records, your safety, quality has maybe 10 crore records. Where do you end? They're charging maybe 1 rupee per record or half a paisa per record, whatever, half a rupee per record. It's going nowhere, frankly. So you have to be careful about what you're entering into. You have to got to have a 5-year plan, okay? Be very, very careful, and then only enter. Otherwise, you have a hybrid strategy. From day one, you have Salesforce, and you have the app outside Salesforce. You have SAP, you have something outside SAP. You plan that way. You have got Dassault, you got Autodesk, whatever. You have something outside, because it's just not possible. All these vendors have $1 million plan for your account. They start with $1 lakh, and they want $1 million, which they go to in the next 3 years. You have no option but to comply.
No, I fully agree, and I think there is a lot of times also when there are monopolies, right? I mean, for example, SAP is pretty much a monopoly in the market, and then of course Microsoft is a monopoly as well, right? So and then every year they keep on increasing the charges, and then you are like, you don't have any options, right? So I think periodically reviewing that and finding alternative is always a good option, and maybe having 2-3 vendors, right? I think we were having a discussions earlier that Microsoft has suddenly increased the Office 365 cost, So one company said, oh, I'm going to migrate half of my users to Gmail, and then Microsoft will, come down and renegotiate. So just to kind of conclude, maybe I'll just take a vote. How many people kind of review this cost aspect? I mean, your operational cost aspects on a monthly or quarterly or 6 monthly. What's your typical cycle to review?
We do it monthly within the function, quarterly with the finance function.
Quarterly, yeah, okay. Mostly quarterly?
We do it annually though.
We do it monthly.
No, I'll differ. For the cloud spend, we do it monthly.
Monthly, you have to do it.
There is no other go.
No other way.
You have to do it.
Absolutely.
But for the most part, and what I really meant by drawing the contrarian view to it, which is why do it annually? Of course, there's the operation rhythm that I'm pretty sure everyone does, just to make sure that you are paying the right amount. But as far as making changes to your landscape is concerned, those are expensive projects. And I would like to draw the attention a little bit as a foundational thing to all the last 3 questions that you posed around KPIs and how do you save and what do you actually do on an ongoing basis. I think it really comes down to the fundamentals of what's the perception of an IT function within an organization versus what is expectation.
Yeah.
And it really boils down to that, because if you are in front of your CFO or your COO or for that matter board or CEO, and if the expectation is that you're going to save money and you're going to transform the organization and you're going to build security, I think any one of us in this room is going to be a wrong choice for them.
Yeah.
It's just not possible. And I think that's where the expectations and the perceptions are completely bipolar. And if you don't step up into the game and talk about, how do you align that expectation and perception, I think no matter how much data you save, how much cloud monitoring you do, or whatever you do, I think it's always going to be a very tough battle and an uphill slope to climb. And so,
very well said, actually. I think to summarize, right, strategic cost management is proactive cost management, actually, right? So every CIO also needs to be seen by the board that the person is also very concerned about the cost and he is actually doing something that will bring ROI in the long run, right? So that short-term cost and the overall business case has to be explained. I think in the board, if that is understood, I think you will get all the support. And that's why I think even when things are going good and business is doing well, even at that point, this cost management strategies has to be deployed so that there is a saving that you can actually deploy for future growth. I think that is a mantra for all CIOs, because sometimes, yes, as you said, because of security reasons or something, right? Cyber security budget, sometimes you can just threaten the board and get a lot of budget. But how really you are utilizing that budget, because there are plethora of solutions available. Sometimes you have 20 different solutions and some of them are actually overlapping and parallel and you are just wasting money, right? So I think that cost consciousness has to be there as part of this. I thank you all for your contributions and thank you audience for your patience. I think we completed before the bell. So if there are any questions, we can take it. Any questions for anybody in the panel?
They are hungry, I guess.
Yeah? Any hands? Oh, there is. Sure.
Hello, my name is 𝗬𝗧𝗀𝗁 𝗃𝗃. I am from Saurashtra Cement Limited, CIO. I could not understand, there's a monthly monitoring or quarterly monitoring or annual monitoring this of the cost of the cloud particularly we're talking.
Yeah.
But what exactly I have done, a contract with the AWS, previous company in Azure and present company with AWS, with a 5 years contract. At the time of making the contract, I was very clear about what exactly what is basically my infrastructure and what is basically the processing capacity and what will my monthly bills will come. And it is, and everything is dollar.
Yeah.
So whatever it was coming, 2 years back, the amount in dollar term, it is remaining same. But the dollar due to dollar fluctuation, it is increased. Total rupees has gone up on this thing. So even if you monitor, as a monthly basis, what exactly you are going to achieve it, because your contract is fixed. You cannot change the contract. Whatever you have done it 5 years, you cannot say, no, I don't need contract, I will terminate this contract. That is not possible.
No, I understood.
Everything is hosted on clouds.
Correct.
That's why questions I could not understand.
So I think
I do monthly or quarterly, how it will happen on this?
I'll give a short answer maybe. See, if it is a defined infrastructure that you have taken with AWS and you are not dynamically changing anything, you are not adding compute, you are not adding too much of data, and you have kind of defined the parameters and that is not changing, you are right. You can do a long-term contract, that's the bill you get every month.
I think I won't agree to that because you tend to lose. Okay, why? AWS continues to upgrade their infrastructure. If you do not move to the new SSDs, if you do not move to the new processor, you're still experiencing a data center kind of environment wherein your hardware is pretty old now, right? So the whole philosophy of pay-per-use is it's in your hand to change whenever you want, whether you want to go out completely, whether you want to change within their environment. We have changed the SSDs 3 times in the last 6 years, and we have moved from old Intel to now Graviton, the complete architecture, right? And these are the cost savings which starts coming month on month or whenever you make change.
You might be having the short-term contract.
I have no contract with them technically.
Okay.
That's what the pay-per-use is all about, right? We typically have no contract.
Because a long-term contract gives a lot of financial benefits.
So
it is basically very clear that okay, the 5 years I'm going to this much of spend, and I'm done lump sum, the discounting, because it is a lump sum contract.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have the contract, it is there. They will decide what's basically the price has to be done.
I agree with your point. So generally what happens, this is what we have also felt. I mean, it's a 3-year contract or a 5-year contract. But how it works based on the users and the fixed amount you are committing with the AWS. Now, it does not bound you in terms of what component you are using out of AWS and how you are saving the cost which is incurring at the year level, right? That's where the monitoring come into place, where you need to vigilantly monitor the cost, users and pattern on a monthly basis to reduce your cost, or put some instances into a reserved mode, or just he has mentioned, like you switch the SSD storage from GP2 or GP3 to get the better IO and performance, where it saves the cost. Now that cost saving part will give you as a discount in terms of extending your contract. Let's say you have committed X amount to use for a 3-year, but you haven't reached that amount because of your cost saving, because of your monitoring policy. The remaining amount you can use for 4th year, then 5th year also. So that's how it will benefit you in terms of monitoring.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, everyone. Gentlemen, thank you everyone.
Thank you so much, everyone. I'll
Just,
request you to
stay
please
back.
stay back. And can we have a photograph, if you can please come forward?
You will need a real wide-angle lens for this panel. Yeah, sure.
Ramanarayana sir, I'll request you to please felicitate all our panelists, starting with Mr. Pankaj Pandit from 𝗬𝗚 Realty.
Please. Thank you.
Mr. Atul Srivastava from Trident Global Corp Limited and Group Companies. Mr. Pawan Satyawali from Tata Consumer Products.
It's not by order of sitting. Thank you. One picture, I think.
Mr. Kamal Shah from Tata Technologies.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Mr. Kiran Giri from NetApp.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Mr. Rajesh from 𝗖𝗀𝗀𝗃𝗄
Thank you, Rajesh.
Mr. Tushar Vagal from Rasan and 𝗬𝗎 Realty.
Thank you so much, Tushar.
And Mr. 𝗘𝗱𝗢 from CMS Info Systems. Thank you so much, everyone. We are now open for the lunch break. Please have your food and let's reconvene by 2:30. Thank you.